Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Losing weight is not always an easy task. Did you know that nearly 1/2 of adults in the United States tried to lose weight in the last 12 months? Yes. Half of Americans tried and failed at losing weight. And we know that our diet plays a big role into this. We know that our low activity rate plays a role into this. But what are some things that you can do besides trying to jump onto some fad diet that you heard about from a friend or a family member, you read about somewhere on Facebook? Let's talk about the reality of weight loss and obviously falling into the category of being overweight or obese and what you can be doing about this. So I am Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and I want to talk about the findings, the data that came from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And they recognize that 50% of U.S. adults tried to lose weight over the course of the last year. And out of that, women tried a little harder than men. Out of that 50%, 56% of those were women. We do know that those who tried to lose weight, they reported their most common way of weight loss was trying to exercise and eating less. But it's the adherence part. And when we know that obesity is on the rise in this country, it's like a pandemic. 40% of adults in the United States are obese. And we know that obesity comes with a whole slew of health risks. When we look at cardiovascular decline, when we look at kidney decline, when we look at mental health. So we have to do something. And we have to first be honest with ourselves and say, what have I tried? What have I stuck with? What have I seen has worked versus what have I tried and failed at, and how long did I stick with it? So my first bit of advice is always at least rule out underlying reasons as to why your metabolic rate may be slowed down. Do you have metabolic syndrome? Having your fasting insulin level tested and your glucose levels, your hemoglobin A1C, your triglyceride levels can give you an indication if you fall into that category. Having your thyroid panel tested. So looking at your thyroid stimulating hormone and your free T3 level. Is there an issue with your sex hormones that's maybe impacting your ability to maintain healthy weight or have a active weight loss routine that works for you? So looking at levels of your DHEA sulfate, looking at free and total testosterone and estrogen and progesterone levels are essential. We have to always look for that root cause. And then we have to look at diet. And we have to look real hard at diet because I've talked to so many people through the years that say, no, I'm following a very healthy diet. And there's been times where I've had consults with people where I sit down and say, okay, walk me through what you're eating every day. And in a roundabout way, it sounds fairly healthy. But when we really break it down, and I'll even go to the extremes of they tell me which restaurant they ate at, and I go ahead and I pull up the nutritional data from that restaurant and say, okay, well, you said you ordered this salad. Now let's look and see the calories in that salad. Let's look at the actual fiber content of that. Was it really the healthiest choice? Just because we say salad doesn't mean it's always healthy. So knowing what's healthy and what can work for you is always key and essential. And we know that there's so many different factors that can play a role into lack of motivation to stick with a diet. Maybe you're incredibly busy. Maybe your job's very demanding. Maybe you have issues that you're dealing with within your family. Stress, cortisol. Yes, I would finally get to cortisol. Having your cortisol levels assessed. The best way to really know what's going on with your cortisol is to do a 24-hour cortisol test. They usually do this via urine test, so we can see what's actually happening. But at minimum, just a baseline single serum, one draw cortisol can often give us some insight. Is there extreme adrenal stress that's creating rises in cortisol, which is making it more difficult for you to lose weight? All of these different things that we certainly know about. But to think that nearly a half of Americans, nearly half of the adult population, tried and failed at losing weight. And many times what happens is people say, well, yeah, I'm going to go exercise. And maybe they stick with it. And we have to be honest about this. Maybe they stick with it for a week, 2 weeks. Well, you may have years of being fairly stagnant where you haven't been very active. And you think that going out and exercising for a week, 2 weeks, even a couple of months is going to instantaneously wipe away years of what has occurred. That's not realistic. It took time to put that weight on. It's going to take time to take that weight off. But it's about routine and sticking with the same routine each and every single day. Having healthy foods that are actually healthy. Having an exercise plan that you adhere to. Something that you're actually going to enjoy. That's one of the things that I oftentimes will say to people. Why do you set yourself up for failure? Don't tell yourself, well, I've never been a runner, but I want to lose weight, so starting next week, I'm going to start running 2 miles every day. You're not going to stick with that because that's not perhaps where your passion is. So you have to find things that you know you're going to stick with. Find things that you have an interest in. When we think about physical activity, it's not always about going and pumping iron or becoming a runner or riding a bike. There's many ways that we can stay physically fit, and you have to find what your interest is, something that you know you will want to continue to do because you find joy in doing it, as opposed to dread. If you dread going to the gym, why are you going to try and tell yourself, every day I'm going to go to the gym? It will be difficult to stick with that. Same thing with diet. I oftentimes will tell people, you need to change your diet, but you have to sometimes do this in a staged way. I had one person I talked to, and they used to eat at fast food twice a day. Stop and get their breakfast, and then mid-afternoon, swing back through another drive-through, and that was their lunch/dinner. And then go home and munch on something unhealthy. Drinking soda throughout the day. I mean, I have to be realistic. Can that person immediately, instantaneously change overnight? No. We are very structured, routine people. And so you have to start to make those minor adjustments. So I used to say, well, instead of stopping every morning for breakfast, can we maybe take an apple and maybe some walnuts with you and have that instead? And then transition out of the everyday breakfast fast food. And then after you're routined and accustomed to that, then we start to make the next change. Everything happens over time, but you have to give yourself the opportunity for success in this. Talk to so many people where they've tried different supplements. Oh, I had a friend who I work with and they told me about this supplement. It's a fat burner and they used it and they lost 30 pounds. So I'm going to use it, and I used it for 2 weeks and it doesn't work. We have to be realistic. You have to set appropriate expectations. So one area that I want to talk about is our Trim HX formulation. Trim HX is unique in the sense that it's targeting two different areas in which many people struggle to achieve their weight loss goals. So one is to try to promote that metabolic rate, speed that up a bit, and to promote fat burning. The other is to stop the cravings. And you're not alone if you do have cravings for bad foods. Maybe every afternoon, come 2, 3 o'clock. It would be your dream if you could just get your hands on some cookies, brownies, or maybe a bag of chips. Maybe it happens to you after dinner, where you're scavenging through your house trying to find something. And what you're looking for isn't a bowl of fruit. You're looking for something bad. So we have to target that brain component of what's driving that. And this is where our Trim HX comes into play. So we are using a registered trademark form of an herbal extract known as Grain of Paradise. And it's called Calorie Burn GP. It's the actual registered trademark form. Why is it registered trademark? Because it's been shown in clinical trials to be effective. And then it is partnered up with 5-HTP, which is 5-hydroxytryptophan. This is the intermediate step between the conversion of the amino acid tryptophan and the manufacturing of serotonin. Serotonin is our happy neurotransmitter. This is the goal of antidepressant drugs, is to try and hold on to more serotonin. Well, 5-HTP helps the body make that serotonin. So it helps to regulate that desire to want to go and snack. But it's not an appetite suppressant, which is what makes this so interesting, because we're targeting two areas that most people are struggling with. That lack of ability to regulate the metabolism, the ability for the body to burn fat. So when we look at our adipocytes, those fat cells, and then also to target the issue with the desire to overeat. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the science on the Grain of Paradise, because it's quite unique. And we can look at how that Grain of Paradise is actually working. So in the Journal of Nutrition Science and Vitaminology, they looked at how the daily ingestion of Grains of Paradise extract actually help to increase energy in the body and decrease visceral fat. So decreasing body fat. The way that they did this is they took a group of folks, and these are people who didn't have major issues with weight, and they wanted to see, is this going to work on these people? And then, of course, then you test it on your target group. So for 4 weeks, they gave Grain of Paradise before meals. And they were assessing the total body fat. And after just 4 weeks of daily ingestion of the Grain of Paradise, they saw a decrease in the visceral body fat. That's pretty impressive. So let's look at another study. How is this actually working? And this was published in the Autonomous Neuroscience Journal, where they looked at extracts of Grains of Paradise and how it was triggering thermogenesis, that's fat burning. And they found that Grain of Paradise, which is part of the ginger family, so Grains of Paradise, part of the ginger family. So we know that this has very, very powerful antioxidant components to it, these active constituents. And they were looking to see how this was actually working within those adipocytes. And they found that one of the active constituents within Grains of Paradise, and this was called 6-Paradol, actually was activating thermogenesis. So actually triggering those fat cells to want to go into this fat burning cycle, which at the end of the day resulted in what? Weight loss. And the key thing is, when we look at utilizing things from nature, that's really quite phenomenal, is once the body is used to doing something, it will continue to do that, so long as we don't impede that process. So this species of ginger, this grains of paradise, has been shown in different human clinical trials. Remember, it's a registered trademark form. It's called calorie burn, GP. So the GP is for grains of paradise. To successfully improve upon natural thermogenesis, the ability to burn fat. And when I said in this last study, the 6-paradol is what they found to be most effective. This is what the grains of paradise form that we are using is providing. It's 12.5% of that 6-paradol, along with the gingerols and the gingerdone. In this, so we are packed with antioxidants to fend off oxidative stress. And then we look at the 5-HTP. And we say, okay, so now we're targeting the fat burning. That's where our grains of paradise comes in. How do we target the issues that can arise when it comes to overeating? So hence we turn to the 5-HTP. So in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, all the way back in 1992, they found that taking 5-HTP led to promising eating behaviors. And they said previous observations have shown that oral administration of 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan, could actually decrease food intake and could promote weight loss in obese subjects. So to confirm this data, they wanted to verify whether adherence to dietary restrictions, so changing up the diet, could be improved with 5-HTP. So they enrolled obese patients to receive either the 5-HTP or to receive placebo. And how much of this were they giving them? They were giving them 900 milligrams of the 5-HTP every single day. And they found that after 6 weeks, the group that was given 5-HTP had significant improvement on their measures of satiety, saying, you know what, I ate, but now I feel full, I feel good. I don't have the desire to want to go and snack on anything. They said these findings together, along with the fact that they were tolerated so well by these folks, suggest that 5-HTP may be safely used to treat obesity. Yes, that's what they say, to treat obesity, because we know that there's multiple factors that come into play. Here's another study on 5-HTP. They took obese subjects who had high body mass index, so high body fat. They gave them 5-HTP. Some were given a placebo. They were looking at what they were eating. They were having them fill out these questionnaires. And they found that the 5-HTP group found significant shifts in terms of decreased food intake as well as weight loss during their period of observation. 5 weeks. That's all that they were doing, 5 weeks. And they saw this significant shift. So the TRIM-HX is this combo of helping to support those adipocytes, those fat cells, to get them to want to burn themselves off. And then we are partnering that with the 5-HTP that helps to support that satiety center within the brain. Remember, the 5-HTP is part of that pathway of making serotonin, which is our happy neurotransmitter. So overall, when we're talking about ways that we can target weight loss, the Trim HX is a really nice way for people to incorporate in a tried and true. You see the different clinical trials on these. Supplement that you can incorporate easily into your routine along with your exercise routine, along with adhering to a healthy diet, Mediterranean diet, taking this before each meal. So this is why when we're looking at people who are not successful with losing weight, we have to look at comprehensive approaches, which is why I like the Trim HX, because we're hitting two different things. We're targeting that fat burning, but we're also supporting the brain satiety center. Of course, we always want to rule out any other factors. We want to look at the thyroid. We want to look at your adrenals. We want to know what's going on. Is there corrections that have to be made along those areas? Always look for the root cause. It's always very important. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we are taking in healthy foods every day, that we are exercising, and that we're taking our Trim HX. So that is all that I have for you for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health Podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Now, do make sure that you subscribe and you leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health Podcast.